You know, we don't go through the numbers, the COVID numbers every day anymore. And some of you think that's a good idea. Others sometimes will text in saying, hey, how come you don't mention the numbers anymore? And yes, I remember when numbers were above 2,000, we were saying, hey, they're starting to go down. And then it kind of fell off the radar only because the government, of course, let us know that the mask mandate would be ending. Mm-hmm. That's this weekend on the 14th. And then, of course, we're out of the emergency COVID, if you will, protocol on the 19th. So people tend to think, well, the worst must be over. That's why we're not talking about this on a daily basis. But you and I, Natasha, have both sort of, when we look at the numbers, kind of reacted the same way and saying, yes, hospitalizations are down. The number of deaths, though, remains stable, it seems, every single day. They're always in the 20 range, and they've not gone down.
23 new deaths being reported today.
So what's really going on? Some people think the worst is over, but others don't. Dr. Lisa Iannatone is an assistant professor at the University of Montreal and an adjunct clinical professor at McGill. She's been pretty vocal, if you can say that, or active, if you will, on social media, on Twitter, about the COVID variant, the one we're dealing with now called Omicron, and says it's a lot more serious than we're giving it credit for. So we wanted to find out more. Dr. Iannatone, thanks for being with us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So am I correct in saying that? Because I read a quote that said, you know, you're calling it a stone cold killer. What are we seeing here? What are we not knowing?
So I think that we really have lost sight of the big picture where COVID is a killer in all its variants. Omicron, it's still under debate, but it seems to have been maybe 25% less, intrinsically deadly or virulent as Delta. But Delta was already twice as bad as the Alpha and the original variant. So we're still always in the same ballpark of an extremely dangerous virus. And I think calling it a killer is very appropriate, given that it's our third leading cause of death at the moment. Even in the post-vaccine era, COVID is continuing to kill a lot of people. Like you guys said, we're stuck in about that range of 20 a day.
So if that's the case, we have to wonder why the government is sort of downplaying this and saying it's okay, we can move forward, mask mandate ending. I'm guessing you think that's obviously a bad idea.
I do. I think that, one, I agree that we do need to move forward and we can't continue to be in this sort of emergency mindset forever. The virus is here, but we need to be proactive. We need to prepare. There's sort of, they call it the panic neglect cycle, where when a surge is materializing, then we sort of scramble and panic. And when we're on the other side of it, instead of sort of putting everything in place to prevent new surges and to, prevent people from catching this virus and ending up in the hospital or dying of it, we just neglect it until the next surge, which I don't think is a very good strategy.
So, I think when I hear that, I'm like, well, that's human nature, right? We get fed up and we're like, we're free. But that shouldn't be like that. That's us as normal, average citizens. It seems to me the governmental approach should be very different.
Absolutely. I hate the idea of personal responsibility in a pandemic. This is something that needs to be solved with collective measures from the top, from public health. We don't need to mask everywhere. It's great that restaurants are open, that people can have parties, but why would people need to catch COVID at the grocery store? There are just some things that don't have much benefit in terms of being able to live our lives and have a lot of risk for people, especially people that are older, immunosuppressed, high risk, unvaccinated kids. Like, there should be safe spaces where people are able to go and not risk catching and then passing on this virus.
What would you consider the least safe environments to be? Like you mentioned the grocery store there. Like, what about, everybody's going to concerts and sporting events now?
So the grocery store is a safe environment, is what I was getting at with the mask mandates, whereas environments where people are not masked, indoors, close crowds, and especially when you have no idea what the ventilation is like, are extremely high-risk environments. That they're open is fine because people that are high risk or that don't want to catch the virus can avoid those places. But everybody needs to go to the pharmacy, to the grocery store, to the mall, to work, to school. So there does need to be a little bit more effort to make all these sort of essential spaces safe.
Okay, so as people hear you say this and then weigh what the government says by easing things, they're trying to understand, okay, I want to be safe, but I don't want to be kind of, ultra safe, if you will, by having to take a mask with me every single place I go. So Natasha kind of broke it down a little bit, but I'm trying to understand if this is still here and this is as deadly as it is, and the numbers don't lie, this is not your opinion, right? These are what numbers show. Mm-hmm. What would you be doing right now? Would you be telling everyone, first of all, get a fourth booster, get that second booster shot, a fourth dose? Because I've heard people say, you know what, there's not necessarily a guarantee that if you've had two shots and a booster, you even are going to get any benefit from a fourth.
Right. So the fourth dose is a little less clear than the third. The third dose, everyone, if you haven't had it yet, you should definitely get it. It's, many consider it to be a 3-dose vaccine series at baseline. For the fourth dose, there are certain groups which for sure should get it, which is people over 60 and anybody immunocompromised. We have studies showing that there is definitely a benefit against hospitalization. For younger groups, it's not as clear, although there's a new study that just came out recently that showed after 6 months, there is definitely a clear benefit. And the issue there is that, certain people, especially younger in good health, will make more antibodies. They might wane a little less quickly. So if you get a booster shot when you still have lots of antibodies, you won't get much benefit from it versus if you get it, when your antibodies are starting to wane, you will get the benefit. So I would say for that fourth shot, if you are at all at risk, I would definitely go ahead and get it if you are more than 3 months from the third one, especially with, more immunoscape variants are coming. This is not over, and the vaccine efficacy, unfortunately, wanes quite a bit. The booster, I brought up some numbers. So for the booster against Omicron, after 3 months, the effectiveness against hospitalization decreases to only 55%.
Okay, I want you to just say that again. So with respect to a fourth shot, you're saying there's new data available as well. You're suggesting 3 months after your third shot, so your first booster, regardless of age.
If you're in a high-risk group.
If you're in a high-risk group.
Okay.
And what if you're not?
If you're not, it's more of an individualized choice. Like I said, there's starting to be data where after 6 months, it might be a good idea for everyone, but that's preliminary. And then it's sort of individual. So the only, you might not get benefit from it if you already had a lot of antibodies, but we know that these vaccines are very safe. So if you're in doubt, if you do a lot of high-risk activities, you have high-risk people in your entourage, and you just want to give yourself extra protection, I would go ahead and get it.
Okay.
Dr. Yanatoni, I'm curious how you feel about the fact that, amongst, when people are having conversations now, the narrative seems to be largely that, COVID has become just like a mild flu, that it's not that big a deal if you get it. At the same time, we're seeing numbers that look like we're going to have triple the number of deaths this year than last year. So, how do we shift that narrative? How do we maintain the importance without, people getting up in arms that are, that we're being fear mongers or what, what I'm trying to say. We need to have a shift here.
Right. I think the most important thing is to have a plan, have a strategy. I think a lot of people have adopted this mindset because they just, don't see another way out. We sort of put it all on vaccines, and when the vaccines ended up being leaky and the escape variants came, people sort of, you don't want to feel despair, so you tell yourself that it's not so bad. But there's just so much more that we can do. So I think, when I talk about this, it's important to say that, one, smart masking, better masks. So if you're going to mask, I might as well do it with the best possible mask, a KN95 or an N95. Definitely ventilation and filtration. We need clean air standards, especially in all shared spaces. And just, making rapid tests widely available and being more adaptable. So, the rapid tests we have now are not so sensitive against Omicron, and we've known this for months. And we know that there are other brands that are more sensitive, but I haven't seen any movement from the government to try to get the better brands to distribute. We're just not proactive. And, there's no silver bullet. There's never going to be one thing that's going to end the pandemic. Every public health measure, just adds another layer of safety. We say that they're all force multipliers, so they work better together than alone. So, putting a bunch of layered protections that are, that cause as little disruption as possible will just keep numbers down, keep infections down, and will hopefully save a lot of lives and help our hospital system, which is still under a lot of pressure.
Can I just ask you, I don't want to say you're a lone wolf in this because there are other doctors, and we've spoken to some of them who feel the same way. What's reaction been from people? Because, as I said, you're fairly active on social media for you saying things like this. Really
positive, actually. I think it was, so as in terms of people disagreeing and being upset or whatever with what I post, it was worse when there were actual restrictions in place. And you can understand that a lot of people's businesses were closed, people need to get out, it was hard. Now that everything's open, people's businesses are running, they're not opposed to things like ventilation. Most people aren't opposed to wearing a mask at the grocery store. So it's been really actually very positive the last few months. People don't want to live with, an infinite amount of virus. Having less virus sounds good to everybody, I say.
Okay, well said. Dr. Yanatoni, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Dr. Lisa Yanatoni over at U of M, and she's also an adjunct clinical professor at McGill. Pretty down-to-earth kind of stuff, right? Nothing there to panic, nothing for someone to say, no, you're crazy. Just kind of makes sense.
Yeah, very straightforward.